keep
Are we
well
good?
at night.
All right, it's 4:35. We'll call the February 3rd Board of Selectmen meeting to order. Invite everybody to please stand for the pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, welcome everybody. Welcome, John.
Welcome.
We don't have our first public comment on here. I think it was just a typo. Do you have any public comment?
No, I don't, no.
All right, we'll move right on to new business. First up, primary election staffing.
Yeah, Michelle had asked me to find out from you if you were going to be able to be there, as a selectman are supposed to staff these things, and if not, you need to make an appointment to have somebody do that.
Yep, I'm not gonna be able to be there.
I'll be there. I mean, it's just a quorum though, really.
I'll be there.
Yep.
So
Okay.
if Aaron and I are both there, we have a quorum.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep, that's good.
And if need be, the moderator can appoint somebody right there on the spot too, I believe, per the RSA.
Sounds good. Well, that's what you wanted to know, who was
Yeah.
going to be there, so that's good.
All right, next up, town deliberative speaking assignments.
So I haven't even had a chance to really talk to you folks about how you normally, run your deliberative session, and it's similar to what I've been in with Farmington, Raymond. Selectmen usually take a warrant article, or read it, and maybe say a little bit about it at the deliberative session, and then if there are questions, they need to answer them, you do, or you ask the department head who's responsible to address it. That's typically.
Yep,
Okay.
that's typically how we do it.
Well, normally Chris reads the warrant article,
Okay.
then we normally have a little clip about, about the warrant article. And then if there's, and then questions, but,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, so,
Don't all dive in here now.
yeah,
Well, with the operating budget, the budget committee's budget is what's there, so, Andy would probably be the selectman to take that on, right?
yeah, since he's a selectman rep. Andy, you good with that?
Yeah.
School resource officer.
I'll take that because I can,
Yeah, chief will be
Yeah.
there, so.
so.
Or we can just alternate. I'll take the next one. I will, not that I want to jump ahead, but I'll take the Heritage Commission one, which is the last one.
Mhm.
Just because we're meeting again tomorrow to work on more information
I'll go ahead and
with
take,
Bruce and John, so.
I can take 5.
Ryan, do you normally, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh,
I was just gonna ask you about the capital reserve fund ones, what have your status, planning board, is that?
I think we typically alter them, but
Okay.
Yeah,
It
I
doesn't-
don't have a problem if you just want to go right
Right,
down
and-
and alter them.
I mean, if we want to set it up that way, we can. Doesn't matter to me.
It's totally up to you folks, just,
You want to start with 6 all the way down to 20, or down to wherever and just alternate them?
Yeah, that works. As long as we know ahead of time which one, so we're prepared.
so
So Erin said she's gonna take a 5.
Right.
So then you're gonna start with you, Ryan, and start alternating them?
Sure.
Okay.
So Ryan, Aaron, Andy, or Andy, Aaron, Ryan?
It doesn't matter.
Well, we
Make
need
sure
to
we're all
know
writing-
just so we're all writing the same thing.
Yeah, if you all write something different, that
Want
doesn't
to just go down the table?
Sure.
All right.
Is that,
So 7 is me, 8 is Andy,
Mhm.
and then going back to Ryan, correct?
the two of us will have to speak to the same one.
You'll have it in your books.
And what about, I just have a question on the solar lease. I mean, you've had the most dealings with that.
And Carrie will be there as well.
Okay,
So we
so,
both dealt with
so how do you feel all right with giving that to you? Ryan, is that,
Well, it should come from whatever selectman, if you want to either,
okay,
ask legal counsel to address it or ask me to
Okay,
address it or whatever
alright.
the case may be, and we'll work all that out before.
Alrighty.
So your 20 is Annie, 21
Is- The last two are Ryan's.
back.
Yeah.
I want to make sure he knew that he had an extra.
That's all right.
We're gonna make them work.
I have extra. Andy's, well, we all kind of, like, yeah,
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
it's good.
Yeah, I'm not, that's no argument here.
And then the petitions?
Oh,
Those are up to those.
Those are up to the petitioners.
So-
Yeah, we don't read those.
Well, Chris reads them.
Chris reads them,
You
but-
usually present your,
Well, he'd say recommended or not
Recommendation or
recommended by
not.
who, and,
I'm good.
Do we, I think in the past on those, haven't we defended our reason for recommending or not recommending?
I don't,
I guess it doesn't matter either way, but.
Typically with petition, everything that I've read on a petition article, no, we don't really,
But we voted on one of them.
right,
Right.
but typically we
We voted
don't.
on both of them, right?
and,
Yeah.
We vote on the tax cap?
yeah, we did. I know the budget committee did, because it holds a value. It holds a money value.
I'm not sure if we can. It just seems like if we're gonna put our stance out there, we should defend why we're,
I think if they're, well, I mean, you can ask Carrie about that if you want to, but typically, with everything I've dealt with as well, the petition warrant article, if the petitioners are there, they would normally speak to it.
okay.
Yeah, so I mean, I'll touch base with her about that and make sure I get word out to you folks. So, and on, on Saturday morning, what time do you, I need to touch base with Pat and get kind of in the groove of how you get set up and everything. But what time do you usually go there? Because you could go a little bit, early and meet and have a quick session with Carrie to go through everything.
Is anybody doing anything like, I know they did a fundraiser for food, do you know if anyone's doing anything?
I don't know if anyone's doing a fundraiser for a bake sale or anything. I've heard that the school is hosting for their session childcare, but no one seemed to,
Come forward for that?
right.
So who, with the school providing childcare, who does that for them?
I'm assuming it's the National Honor Society.
Okay. I want to touch base and ask if they'd be willing to do that for the town. I mean, I talked to somebody about that, and I need to call them and talk and ask about it. I can't remember who talked to me about it, actually, but I will call tomorrow morning.
Is lunch being brought in, or what's the plan there?
Sounds like
Are we
no.
on our own?
I haven't heard anything.
Okay. Maybe
Well,
check with Chris.
Well, you'll be gone by, unless, I mean, because the school don't start
True.
till 1, so.
True.
So I'm not thinking no more than probably a couple of hours.
I forgot you get that. Thank you.
Yeah. So, we should be all right.
Yeah, but there's others that'll be there that may wanna. Chris, Karen, Danielle, are you gonna be there all day? Or are you-
I switch roles. I switched to resident for the school.
So is that something that?
In the past, I mean, there was lunch there because there was a fundraiser for
Right.
different reasons, but, and I guess, I don't remember the year before I went, but I don't recall that there's
It was
any food
this
for
would
the
have been
town
the third.
officials that are dealing with it.
Right.
It's not really,
Hmm.
it's up to the individual to fend for themselves, I guess.
I just remember I got locked out of my house and couldn't get my keys and had to get a ride from Chief Kraus back last year.
All right.
Right.
All right, so we good with speaking assignments? And you're gonna put a binder together like you normally do. Did I ever do mine from last year? I think I know right where that is.
I did that.
When do the binders expect to be completed?
As soon as I get the final go on the wording of the articles
All right.
and the material that is used for backup.
So hopefully Wednesday, Thursday. All right,
Also-
everybody, good with that?
Yeah, and I'll go through and talk to you about some of the different,
I just want to, are we just gonna talk about these warrant articles for 1 sec? Or I want to just bring up something, because on Article 2, on the operating budget, where it says estimated tax impact, people think that that's what the tax impact is gonna be.
that happens everywhere.
Okay, but, I mean, I realize that, but is there somehow or some way we can educate people that that is really not the tax impact? Because it does cause a little bit of confusion.
Yeah. Yep, I'll see what I can put together.
I mean, I'm just throwing it out
Okay.
there, because it would kind of help us.
Yeah. Yeah, some of the other paperwork that I have on that might help is the tax rate calculator, the estimate, because it actually shows you, what the projected tax rate would actually be for the town for everything. Well, with the operating budget, and it really isn't that. Let's see. What it does is take the total operating budget, and all the warrant articles, and then takes in to account estimated revenues, and then warrant articles that are paid with the unassigned fund balance. So when all is said and done, it boils everything down, where this says what the operating budget is worth when you use the assessed value, divided by that. This one actually tells you what the entire projected impact is supposed to be, whereas this says 768 for the operating budget. This one says 726 for everything. So it might be, this might be the thing to use to educate people as to what it is. We have to use the gross amount. I mean, we have to actually take the value of the warrant article and divide it by the the assessed value of the town. So that's why this appears that way. So you haven't had this trouble in the past? Have you?
I don't know, it just was brought up this week,
Okay.
that's all. I would just, no, I understand. We'll get through it.
Well, I think that's just when we, or I guess when you get up and speak about that, Andy, we should
No.
have something in there explaining
Yeah.
how that figure
Yeah.
is calculated.
Yeah, that's not taking into account any revenues or anything. That's just a,
Yeah.
So what I provided you tonight was an updated warrant. It's not actually been changed, but what I've done is circled some of the minor things that will have to be addressed, just so they're right on the ballot during the deliberative session. And I've printed out a sheet that has listed everything, and that's right here. And there's a 2 in Article 6 that actually should be the, because when you read it, it just says is may be adjusted from time to time into town operating budget, so instead of into the. So that's a pretty simple one. And then when you get down to Article 16, again, it's not really a material thing, but it is, it says 2019 to 2024 capital improvement program, and it should be 2020 to 2025. So just to get it right for the ballot, I would suggest changing that. And then the big one would be, let's see. Okay, Article 8 is another one on this list of things. You talked about using unassigned fund balance for that fire department equipment and apparatus capital reserve fund.
Mm-hmm.
So, the motion, if there was a motion to be made, would be to amend the article to add that line that says this appropriation will be funded by transfer from the unassigned fund balance and no additional amount will be raised by taxation. With the contingency fund, that's required by statute to be funded out of the unassigned fund balance, so that would have to stay the way it is. Because you had asked about that the other night, about trading.
Yep. Okay.
Let's see. And then we had Article 23 is the one where the recommendation was incorrect on this. And so that would just be a matter of making the motion on the floor to correct that recommendation when you get to it, to say that this article was recommended by 2-1-0 vote, 2 for, 1 against. What gets confusing is the motions. When you make a motion, make a motion not to not recommend, and then people talking about, well, so are you in favor of it or are you against it? So that always gets confusing with these things. But it was pretty clear on the tape, and I wanted to thank Les Elder for pointing that out. He sent an email to me. I think it was on Sunday, and so we will correct that. And let's see. And that's really it. The only, the other one to talk about here was in the event that the contingency fund did pass, that's a $41,000 amount, then there is an amount that's in the operating budget that's for unanticipated expenses that you might want to consider adding something that if this is passed, then, you know, that would come out of the operating budget. Because you really have, you know, almost that much in there when you add you have the 18,000, and then that leaves, I mean, you have twice as much with it. You really wouldn't need to have that amount. And I think it just shows the taxpayer, that you're being transparent about everything.
Yep.
So that is why that's there. And I still have to get DRA's opinion on that. I've seen it done before in both towns I've worked in Raymond and Farmington, so I don't know why it wouldn't be valid. And that's
Alright.
really everything that I have for you for these things.
Anything else from the board? So I guess just the last thing, do we want to meet before the deliberative session on Saturday? Because we'll have to post that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, normally we always used to come in like a half hour or something early.
Okay.
I mean, how much time do you think would have to meet?
Well, I don't think you're gonna need too much time, but I mean, it's, because we're having a staff meeting on Thursday to go through things for staff, and between now and then, I'm gonna be getting with Pat. I wanna go up there and take a look at things and get familiar with everything, and, so I'll have a better idea when we do have the staff meeting, what we're gonna do, and then if you met, say, 45 minutes prior to the meeting,
Oh, fine.
that'd be great. I can make sure Terry is there and we can go through and make sure all the legal bases for these things are set up. So as far as the meeting itself, we would just put a clip of the warrant article as it's written, and Chris, the moderator, would go through and read that. Then it would be handed over to whichever selectman at first, and then any questions would likely, if they weren't easily answered by one of you, then we would confer and answer the questions that way. That's what it's, what I've seen in the past. Is that similar to what you've done?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right, so we'll plan on meeting at 7:45 Saturday.
8:15.
Yeah.
Oh, it's 9 o'clock. I was thinking it was 8:30. I was
You'll
used to
be-
getting there for 8:30, but
You'll be real early, Ryan.
all right.
All right.
All right, so town report front cover. Decision.
It's sitting right there.
Oh, it's the dedication.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Oh. What did you want to do for the?
Has anybody brought any?
There's some photos here and there, but not anything that really stands out. I don't know if you have a direction that you thought of going in.
I mean, normally it's last year was the ball field. Am I correct?
Last year was Veterans Park.
Oh, it's Veterans Park. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah. Ball field. Yeah. I don't think would be really. Any ideas, John?
I guess the one I presented last year was too scattered, I think. I had so many different pictures on it that it really, I guess, was drawing your focus to whatever, the first picture you see, I guess, but I thought about it earlier, but now because snow on the ground, I thought about getting a good shot of a new Milton Mill cemetery, but because we do have some good sites up there with our large monuments and the old monuments and the tree background type thing. But it's probably not a good time to do it. You like to see the green grass in that
Mhm.
picture, is basically what I'm saying.
How about the
The
how about the
flagpole.
library? How about the library now? It's
Mm.
finished. Just,
It's not
Well,
just,
finished.
it's not,
well, it's all, it's,
Yeah,
it's more closer now than it has ever been. I'm just throwing it out there, I don't know, I mean,
We could put together a collage of different things, if you wanted, unless that's what you were talking about, it being confusing.
Maybe take
Oh,
a
last
few
year
things
was
that have been
fun.
accomplished during the year, the new flagpole down in Milton Mills, the finish of the, at the library.
Oh,
Maybe, do you
I
have,
guess it's okay if I speak, right?
yep,
I guess if I was asked to make a recommendation, here I am, historical again, I know, but I think the town would look nice on the front cover, because there's hoping a lot of activity coming in the next year on that.
mhm.
I have some pretty good pictures of that. No, that's one. I think you come up probably some others, and you can make the decision today, do you?
Not today, but
Saturday, we can put that on, that quick meeting before the deliberative session, right?
Yeah, so,
I guess
Or the
for me, the answer to
townhouse.
the question is,
The townhouse.
if you could give me a cover, the
Mhm.
townhouse is exhausted, the front cover.
And on.
yeah,
It's been on there, okay.
yeah.
But no, I'm not throwing, don't get me wrong, I love to have it. You know, I could do some real good shots of the inside, and of course, it's gonna be grand opening this year, so that's another idea, that, you know, I could go take a good shot of some of the areas on the inside is fabulous. The new bathrooms are all done. If you want to, I'll take on, see what I can do to help, and give me a couple of days, and I'll come up with some pictures and send them to Danielle, and she can share them with you, and maybe it might be a help.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have a lot of photos that I took from the beginning of the summer season, you know, when the beach opened, the races, some nice, spring, summer photos that show greenery and everything, and if you wanted to provide some, I could actually put together a nice collage using either PowerPoint or Photoshop and see how that looks if you want to.
Yeah, and then Ernie has some great pictures of the inside too,
Mhm.
of the townhouse, so we'll put them together, Ernie and I, and
the
the
Ira
next couple
Miller,
of days.
the Ira Miller General Store.
Yep, before they got the 4th of July parade too, and I've got some nice photos of that.
All right, thank you.
well, we're on town report. Just a reminder for your submission, please.
If you have anything particular you want in the Board of Selectmen report? Next year, I'm not gonna be here. Somebody else is gonna have to do it.
Oh,
I'll
I'm not
send
on
you
the
what
ballot.
I'll send you what I've written. I've written a little bit, but not much. Same as like last year.
Okay.
yeah, normally, yeah, I mean, I can come up with something, but normally the administrator, but,
He wrote his own last year, Ryan, with a
I think
little
I
bit
did
of,
it.
with a little bit of input for me.
Yeah,
Did that.
I did it the last couple of years, I think, but, or no. I guess I didn't do
Last
it
year.
last year, but. All right, well, if you guys wanna just email me, whether it's just bullet points or whatever, and I
Right.
can try to put something together. Try to put something together for Saturday so we can discuss it
Yeah.
if you can give me the information, what you have in the next couple days.
If you want to combine it with the thing that I put together, I mean, you can certainly call it the selectmen's report. And if you want to do that, just add if there's anything you want to add to it. I mean, because I think mine was like 3 pages, I believe.
Yeah, yours covered a lot. I mean, I'd be good with that too if the board is good with that. I mean, Ernie's kind of he is our point person.
yeah,
I don't know if you've had a chance to read his, but
Yes, I did.
I
It
thought
was
it was well written. and
excellent.
All right, so,
Good representation of what has gone on
Gone
this
on,
past year.
all right, we'll just call it Selectmen's Administrator's Report. All right?
That works.
Okay.
We're getting the shame.
And if there's anything you want to throw into it, just,
Well, normally we take a picture together.
Oh yeah, you're not getting out of that.
And I think if we're doing it as a group, aren't you gonna do?
I agree.
Yeah. All
I
four
mean,
of us can
really,
be-
yeah.
I agree.
all right? Sure.
Did you want to add that to Saturday, or did you want
Sure.
to do that?
We
Yeah,
have in the
please.
past, right?
Yeah.
You have against that salmon
Probably
color wall.
Beautiful.
Probably want to do it pre-meeting, right? 'Cause
Maybe we can do it outside. Maybe it'll be nice out. Maybe John can find us some of that green grass somewhere.
All right. On to fund balance policy.
Yeah, I had looked when I got here, maybe a couple of months after I got here, at what that was, just because, we looked at how much had been spent out of the fund balance and setting, the tax rates and also funding warrant articles. It's, on one, it's sometimes it's a good thing and it's a bad thing. I mean, if you build too much fund balance, and there are reasons for it. I mean, a lot of times you get unexpended appropriation, and a lot of times the reason that you get so much unexpended appropriation back into the general fund is because you weren't able to hire, keep people in positions. I think the police department, was down 2 or 3 positions consistently over the past couple of years, and that translates into wages and wage-related costs and benefits and all of that. So, you can turn a lot back, and it appears to the taxpayer as though maybe you've over budgeted or collected too many taxes, when in that case it isn't. In other cases, the way the budget cycle works, you have the first 3 months or 2.5 months of the cycle where you really should operate based on getting a default budget, because you don't really know what you're going to get until after the actual ballot vote. And then you have 2.5, 3 months at the end of the year where you don't really know what you're going to get for weather and everything. So those are all part of the budget, but I think people are cautious about spending money until you get closer to the end of the year. So there are a lot of factors that go into why you get money back at the end of the year. Sometimes your revenues might be under budget or conservatively budgeted, which I think is a good idea anyway. But so what you had for a fund balance policy, was a good start. Didn't really get into any specifics though. It does talk about spending priorities on the second page. It says when expenditures are incurred for purposes for which both restricted and unrestricted fund balance is available, restricted fund balance is considered to have been spent first. So that's pretty obvious anyway. You want to use the money that's been restricted or set aside for particular purposes, before you use the fund balance to fund any of that kind of thing. But then it says when expenditures are incurred for purposes for which amounts in any of the unrestricted fund balance classifications can be used, committed amounts should be reduced first, followed by assigned amounts, then unassigned amounts. And that's not an uncommon statement. But then, the important part, it talks about the deficit of fund balance. At year end, if any of the special revenue funds, such as the transfer station fund, have a deficit unassigned or fund balance, the town administrator is authorized, after consultation with the Board of Selectmen, obviously, to transfer funds from the general fund to cover the deficit, providing the general fund has the resources to do so. And that's one of those things too that I think we'd have to take a look at if that is actually able to be done without a warrant article. So I'm not really sure that that's necessarily valid. So then they talk about minimum level of unassigned fund balance. The town will strive to maintain an unassigned fund balance in its general fund equal to 8 to 15% of the total annual appropriations of the community. That's town, county, school. The selectmen have the authority to apply a portion of the town's beginning unassigned fund balance in order to balance the budget and to reduce the property tax rate. So with tax rate setting, there are two opportunities to use fund balance. One is during the deliberative session and putting them, toward warrant articles, and the next is at the tax rate setting. So DRA works with you, and if you've seen the tax rate setting sheets where they talk about the level of unassigned fund balance, the recommended, and so you normally work with them to keep it in between, their recommendations, which can be anywhere from 7 to 18%. So what I, whoops, where did it go? There it is. What I did was I looked, we've done this in several places, and I looked at a bunch of different fund balance policies that were adopted by other communities. So what I tried to do was go through and explain in this what the different parts of, what the fund balance actually consists of. They're non-spendable, restricted, and then unrestricted. And these are all defined in here. And then so the people, if they read through it, this is really in the audit explains this. There's a section within the audit that explains what this is all about. But really the important part of it comes down to, let's see. Okay, surplus fund balance. Let's see, unassigned fund balance rate, that's on page 3, about halfway down. Because you still have the same prioritization of fund balance uses, so that hasn't really changed much. But the New Hampshire DRA, Department of Revenue Administration, recommends an unassigned fund balance between 5 and 17% of total gross appropriations. Now, the auditors have looked at this, and they recommend 10%. So what we did was say the town of Milton will maintain a minimum unassigned fund balance in its general fund ranging from 7 to 14% of total expenditures as reported in the prior year for town, county, and school collectively. The minimum fund balance is to protect against cash flow shortfalls related to timing of projected revenue receipts, to avoid expensive issuance of tax anticipation notes, and to maintain a budget stabilization commitment. In other words, you know how much the TAN was. That was a little over $17,000 for 2 months of borrowing that we had to do, just because of the special circumstances surrounding that unanticipated revenue we got and the anticipated revenue the school got. Because we had to delay tax billing, so we had to get a tax anticipation note to do that. And then, let's see. Replenishing deficiencies. So here it says, should the unassigned fund balance fall up below 8% minimum, town administrator will develop a plan to replenish shortages deficiencies for the Board of Selectmen approval. Such plan for restoration should be reviewed and updated on an annual basis until the policy level guidelines are achieved. And then next one is surplus fund balance. Should it exceed 14%, the Board of Selectmen will recommend to the legislative body such fund balance surpluses for one-time expenditures that are non-recurring in nature, like capital expenditures, and which will not require additional future expense outlays for maintenance, additional staffing, or other recurring expenditures. Should the unassigned fund balance exceed 10%, the Selectmen may utilize a suitable amount to offset taxes at the time of tax rate setting with New Hampshire DRA, Department of Revenue Administration. And then, upon adoption of this policy, the Milton Board of Selectmen authorizes the town administrator to establish any standards and procedures subject to final approval of the governing board, which is you, which are necessary for implementation of this policy. Town administrator shall review this policy and provide a report, any recommendations for changes to the Board of Selectmen at the following times: upon completion of the annual audit, and if there's a change in government accounting standards concerning unassigned fund balance. Now, if due to any circumstances there's a reasonable probability that the unassigned fund balance will fall below 8% in the current or next budget cycle, or if due to any circumstances there's a reasonable probability that the unassigned fund balance will exceed 17%, and that those are all should be included in that report. So that's this is something that I just put together. I think because there've been so many questions, I mean, the one thing that people always ask about is the fund balance. The unassigned fund balance, how much we have, what it can be used for, and all that. And, again, as we said at the beginning, it's kind of a fine line to walk. I mean, you don't want to be taxing people more than they should be taxed. But even if there are good reasons for that, that needs to be explained to people. Why is there so much coming back? And then you need to have a policy that you can show that you're following so that people know that you're in good faith dealing with their tax money. So that was the reasoning behind this. And, I'm not looking, I don't know if something like this, if you would want to hold a public hearing on it first, or if you'd, want to come back after, at the next meeting, maybe, after you've had a chance to look at it and consider it. But whatever you want to do. I've seen it done both ways, where if you do something like a policy like this, and you do want to get public comment, you just, hold a quick public hearing, and anybody who's interested would come and comment on it, I would presume.
Well, I definitely do like the proposed one a lot better than the current, because I think the current is very flawed.
I think it was cut and paste mostly, just
So-
taken.
A lot of communities, when it was recommended that they come up with a fund balance policy, if you look at them, a lot of them are exactly the same.
Mhm.
And they don't really go into any depth or discuss any of the things that this one does. And, you have to actively try to abide by it too. And,
Well, and it's kind of like a living document, really. Changes happen.
mhm.
So it needs to be changed constantly.
Right.
It needs to be updated.
Right, it's been
And
in-
this brings it up to more of a current, and it gives more of an explanation as well.
Yeah, like I said, I did run it by Victoria Cameron, I believe her last name, and she's one of the principal auditors that worked on it this year. And she was, I think I sent you her memo, her email of it. So,
Because this was in 2012, this one.
right.
So,
A few years have gone past.
So
If
what
I
it
could
would-
comment on that, I'd like to, on
Sure.
the fund balance. I think Ernie's point is outstanding, and that's the way the taxpayers are feeling today. And it's kind of like no, no, no on everything. But I think if you do like you're proposing right now, to explain in detail to the public exactly what's going on, I think they'd be thrilled, like I am. I'm a part of the CIP origination of it, and I'm very tickled to see what's happened with it. If we all took a look at that and you see what the end result is in the last year, it's great. A perfect example of is that right now, if you look at it, just look at the interest that's earned in those 6 or 8 or 10 categories in the capital reserve fund. Just look at the interest, the 12-month period that we'll gain. And then you take a look at, after you look at the interest in it, you have to look at the same thing that we got with the budget, leftover money, because we're still gonna have leftover money. But a perfect example of this year is the capital buildings expenditure, which I used some out of last year. If you look at it now this year, if I haven't seen everything, but I'm thinking that you went from 50 down to 40, because we only used $12,000 something dollars and have a $38,000 balance in it, as we said here today. But look at the interest on top of that. If you put a plan together to explain that in detail for people, me, that aren't up to speed on numbers, you could probably explain it to a lot of people in this town. It's a big benefit for the town. The leftover money from the fund balance, do we want to go to fluctuation of taxes like we used to? You gotta explain that. I don't think anybody wants that. That's the big factor right there. Fluctuation of the tax dollars, because if you didn't do the CIP, you'd be right back to what it was before. One year you'd be paying, $4 million for a budget, the next year you could be paying 5 or 6, and then down to 3, it's gonna be all over the place. Now, you can put that together, a package in simple terms. I got an idea to satisfy every taxpayer in this town of Milton. That's only my opinion, because I've been focused on it, and I'm happy to see what I'm seeing. And I have to thank the department heads for all the hours and everything we all put into it. It's working, it's definitely working.
Yeah.
And you did a write-up last year, the Board of Selectmen did an excellent job with it. You mentioned that about the fluctuation of the tax dollars of that CIP. Outstanding.
I agree.
I'm sorry for jumping in.
Oh, you're good.
No.
Yeah, I think it's been almost 8 years since this has really even been looked at, so it's time. I don't think having a public hearing before we officially implement it is a bad idea to get some feedback on it. So I make a motion that we move forward with a public hearing at our next meeting to discuss the new or the revised fund balance policy.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Arnie.
You're welcome.
Isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's a typo.
Okay.
So old business. Do we have any thing under old business? I don't see anything on here.
No.
Or any other
This-
business that has come up before the
This-
board?
You know, the only thing I did want to mention is on the voter information. Yes, thank you. So, first off, on this, what I did try to do, and I still haven't got everybody's in here, is because it will be online, I have provided a couple of references for people to go online to, you know, if they want more information about particular things. So, for instance, of course, the CIP, I just put the link in there on this, which will be on the website too. So people, if they're interested in looking at it, can do that. There's also information, of course, the chief hasn't looked at the school resource officer one, but I did, go to the Department of Safety, New Hampshire Department of Safety, and actually they've got a page that talks about school resource officers. He may or may not want that in there. I haven't gotten anything back from him yet. And let's see, because this isn't even anywhere near, this doesn't have to go out until after the deliberative, so that's why people haven't quite responded yet on all of them. Let's see. Yeah, I did have a page here on European NIAID, what it actually does and what it is, but I got to talk to the attorney about it, because for some reason they thought that was electioneering, and I just thought it was a nice explanation about what it does. So I'm going to talk to him about that, because I think that one's a little bit radical, but that's it. I just wanted to point that out. We did have them look at this because a lot of, and again, that's just because of my background. You may not have done this here before, but I did have them look at it to make sure there was no electioneering as part of this, because some people don't like that and they're very serious about that, and I just don't want to make anybody angry. So we try to keep it as neutral as possible and just explain what it's doing. And so,
All right.
but that's what we've done with this so far. And you will actually get to obviously approve the final one after deliberative session. And now, we got something in the mail on this whole solar garden contract. The buyer and the seller gave us a document called a solar estoppel certificate. I got that, and I said, hey, he says it to me, hey, sign this, Ernie. And I said, oh, I don't think I'm going to sign that until I know what it is. And so I sent it to legal counsel, and they said, I don't know why we would do this, but what she is doing is working with him to make it something that, basically what it is if the town, the legislative body does accept the amendments and everything to it, there's a $20,000 that the town will get as part of that, amending the contract, because it helps them to get refinancing. But what this does is make sure that they're protected and they don't have to pay the $20,000 even if town meeting doesn't approve it. So that's what this is about, and we finally kind of figured, it doesn't say it very clearly, but that's what the the basis of it is, which isn't unreasonable. I mean, they're just trying to protect themselves. So once we get through this, what she had asked, Carrie, our attorney, had asked someone to make the motion as follows. I move to authorize our town administrator to sign the Milton Town Solar Estoppel Certificate, but contingent upon town council advance approval of the terms of the certificate, if you're okay with that. It's, you know, you can always ask for it to come back before you. It's completely up to you, but that's what she had asked to have done.
I'm fine with it.
Town council, it's being reviewed by town council, and you're not gonna sign it until town council is
Right.
satisfied, so.
So she
Motion so said.
Okay.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you.
Yep. All right, all set with that. So we will move on to approval of minutes. We have the January 23rd meeting minutes. There's been one typo pointed out
Okay.
under attendance. Remove the excuse.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Anything else from,
No?
Other than that,
I'll make a motion to approve the January 23rd Board of Selectmen meeting minutes with the discussed changes.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Now that change won't affect the last page, it wants to sign that.
Would you rather wait?
I think we can. Trust that you're gonna remove excused.
I will.
Oh, come on, Tim.
All right, any public comment about any topics discussed tonight?
I'm the
Go.
only one here. I'd like to make a recommendation, which we're talking about tonight, to help out with the deliberative session. Maybe you've already got it planned, but I recommend strongly that you make copies of all our warrant articles and have them available to the people. So we have to read. I don't know if you did it last year, I didn't
Yep.
make it, but the year before, there was a big issue with it. So you probably already corrected the problem, and gonna do it.
Thank you.
What is your typical attendance?
You might wanna highlight the CIP in red. Let them read each one of those.
We have the CIP available for review as well.
Probably say 75, maybe 100. It's never that much, but,
Was an accident body, did you?
but
Yeah.
If you include all, everybody that's there, us and the school board, and that maybe get 65.
Any more administrative comments or
Nothing.
selectmen comments? Andy?
no, I guess I'm all set this week. Thank you.
Good.
Good. I just want to remind people that if you are concerned with your tax bill, that tax abatements are due March 1st. So you have a month to complete that process. And that's all I got. So we got a few non-publics to do. I'll make a motion that we go into non-public under 91A 3(2)A.
Second it.
All in favor?
Have a good night, John.
Aye.